join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Null, nil, zero, zero, nulla, stiffia, zilch, none, nada, sod all equally adequate ways to describe the amount of goals Nottingham Forest, aside from the one Chris Wood header, have managed to score in 7 pre-season matches. So how has that left you feeling, Forest fans? Are you concerned? I mean, it should also be mentioned that 5 clean sheets in those games as well means it isn't all doom and gloom, is it? It's just 1 week to go, though, until Forest kick off their Premier League campaign at home to Brentford. And you could probably get a 0-0 draw at the bookies right now for 25-1 on. Stick with us for the next hour as we reflect on last night and the pre-season as a whole, debate the pros and cons of it all, and give thoughts and opinions on Palace at CAS, the need for new recruits, and much, much more as well. So, to help us do all of that, we're in the company of a pair of die-hard Reds fans, the Texas Ranger Bruce Johnston and Wollaton West Councillor Steve Battlemuch. Now, if you haven't been here before, welcome. And if it's your first time, hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast, hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and my fellow Forest fanatic from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray.
Let's pretend! Let's pretend! Let's pretend we score the goal!
Has been and always will be. In any match you go to, you'll see a goal miss from a yard, a foot, 3 yards, 6 yards, 10 metres or whatever. It's the hardest thing in football.
It is indeed. The great man himself said it. The hardest thing in football is scoring goals. So let's not get too down in the dumps. Let's analyse it and think about how it might affect us as we go into the new Premier League season next Sunday. Let's start by saying hello to my compadre, Richard Spray. How you doing, buddy?
Surprisingly great. You know, maybe I have my rose-tinted glasses on at the moment, even though you can't visibly see them clearly. I might have them on, but I went back to the hopium. I hit the hopium hard, and I'm still looking forward to that match against Brentford. I know I've got no justification, Greg. We've already gone through that conversation, haven't we? But that's all right. I still have a belief, and I think it just begins with Nuno. I think I just have so much faith in him, and I have faith in these guys to play within the framework and those goals to come. But we'll see.
We will see. We will see. And we want positivity. We're not happy clappers. I know that that's the phrase that people throw around. We will analyse it and be balanced if we can. And we've got 2 great guys with us to do that. First, over in Texas, the Texas Ranger himself, Bruce Johnston. Howdy, partner. How you doing?
Howdy. Doing well, guys. I'm about to put a little wager after your intro on a 0-0 draw for Brentford, and feeling a lot better after Weiwei's comment, which I'm sure you'll highlight here in a second.
We will indeed. And Steve Battlemuch, you were there last night, buddy. First friendly you set off there for God knows how long, and probably the last friendly you're going to go to for God knows how long. How you feeling, mate? Good to have you with us.
Yeah, evening, chaps. Yeah, it wasn't great last night again, if we're honest. But the starting lineup, with the exception of Morgan, was probably the starting lineup for next week, and it's just where Morgan then slots in. Does he Does he come in for where Yates played last night, or do they play three in midfield and just Jesus, whatever we're calling him, go to the bench? It'd be interesting, I think, that. But also, I'm sure we'll get onto this. When you go past that starting 11, the bench looks very thin. And so who might come in this week, depending on what European competition we get into, I think could make the difference. Maybe not for Sunday, but certainly as we kick into the season. But yeah, it's been a tough pre-season. But you know, if we beat Brentford, no one will remember pre-season. I can't tell you what happened last pre-season. You know, I just don't. It never bothers me. It's fitness, I think, mainly. But we'll see.
We will indeed. We will indeed. Do us a favour, guys. Hit like and subscribe, and you can follow us on TikTok, Facebook, X, Instagram, all the usual places. And if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, you can go ahead and give us a nice 5-star review. If it so takes your fancy, don't forget, if you're in the comments, we want to hear and see what you think. So please do drop into the comments and let us know what your thoughts are. I'll start by saying hello to the Garibaldi nerd who had his comment in an hour ago, ready and waiting. He was on Red Side of the Trent this morning chatting with them. And he wants to make the point that there's no need to worry unless we lose to Brentford. The bench is still, the bench is still same come 1st September. But now just accept the squad isn't done. Yeah, the squad isn't done. We're absolutely certain of that. If it is done, I think we are in deep trouble. Quick shout outs to Ian Wigginson. He's with us. Richard Ottaway as well. Thanks for being with us. And Way Mark NFFC. He says, our defence is clearly stronger than Liverpool's. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But congratulations to Crystal Palace on winning the Community Shield, or the Charity Shield in old money, as I still call it. That was an interesting game, and they're going to be feeling very buoyed. I hope that only lasts 24 hours or so, and tomorrow they come crashing down again just a little bit. The Grand Madness, Andrew, is over in the UK. We wish you well, Andrew. I know you're over visiting Dad, and you got to the game with him as well, so it's good to see pictures of you guys together. Dr. Anna says, hi, guys. Hey, Doc. Good to have you on board, as ever. Okay, right, let's get into it. I want to quickly start off, though, before we get into it properly, by putting a shout out to a couple of listeners of Talking Reds, Paddy and Carol. There they are on the screen. They're from Drogheda, I beg your pardon, in Ireland, and they popped into the cheese trader in York to see Stu Freestone. And Stu dropped a message to us to say, look, these guys came in. They are big fans of the podcast. They love everything we talk about, and they watch and listen regularly. They really didn't want to accept the 10% discount that Stu offers to all of Talking Reds people because they want to support him as a small business, which is great. I think Stu still did manage to kind of give him a bit of a discount without them perhaps realising. So it's great to be able to say to Paddy and to Carol, thank you so much for tuning in to Talking Reds. We hope that you enjoyed your trip over to York and to see Stu Freestone. Keep listening, keep watching, and everyone else as well. Remember, if you're in the York area, pop in to see Stu Freestone. The Cheese Trader, our sponsor, and you can get 10% discount whenever you mention Talking Reds. All right. Richard, a couple of good news moments before we kick off properly, and that was that Matt Sells has been nominated at the Ballon d'Or Awards. This isn't the main award. This is the Specialist Goalkeeper Award, which I think they created in the last set of years or so, because it's very difficult for a goalkeeper to really outright win the award. And I know that Peter Shilton, I think he finished 10th back in 1979, as well as 16th or something in 1980. And other goalkeepers have fared fairly well as well. But it's quite hard for goalkeepers to win the outright awards. They've got the Yashin Trophy. And Matt Sells, after that stonking season last year, has been nominated. It's pretty cool, isn't it, to have a Forest player nominated at the Ballon d'Or Awards, Richard?
Yeah, it's a good way to kick things off right before the season gets going, to have that kind of confidence and that kind of capability, between the sticks. And so I'm really grateful for him, because as we've all said, we've all regurgitated the experience that was prior to him. So it is definitely well deserved, right? I mean, he was absolutely fantastic, and he's looked good in preseason as well. So I mean, the man's not slowing down. Hopefully, never. Hopefully not for the next few years anyway, until we get that succession plan sorted out. But man, is he just and he's a hell of a guy too. I mean, he just seems like a genuinely good guy as well. And so you just take great joy in finally kind of him getting to the heights. You know, he had talent. He was on Newcastle at one point, kind of languished a little bit, and then came back, and now he's really just flying, and he's been tremendous for us.
Indeed, yes, well deserved. Something else that popped up in the news, Brucey. Something that my interest, is quite big for, is the new shirt. So there's the home shirt hanging up next to me, without the sponsor at the moment because the baddies only came out last week. But the new away kit has arrived, and it's another beauty. Brucey, what are your thoughts on the new away kit? Just briefly, it looks a real banger.
I love it. No, the all white is one of my favorite designs in any kind of. I got a Miami Dolphins hat on right now just because I like their uniforms. I'm kind of a nerd like that. But no, I love it. I actually, as soon as it dropped, I went on the shop and ordered one for my daughter. I already bought one for my son. So unfortunately, I don't have the figure for all white, so I didn't want to buy one for myself.
They were queuing around the shop last night before the game. People buying them. They were going like hotcakes last night.
I bet they were. I must admit, I pulled the trigger on buying myself the shirt and my son Orlando the whole kit within like half an hour. I'm not going to bother waiting for the European match. I want it straight away. So that's been ordered. It's going to be delivered to my dad's house whilst we're here. I'm in Warsaw now, guys. Those that have been following my progress. So I've been in Szczecin a week ago, then Bydgoszcz. Now I'm in Warsaw, heading out to Rome in a week's time. So I'm doing my own little pre-European magical mystery tour, just to kind of like get a flavour of how things will be. And we'll get into the European adventure in just a bit. But Steve, we're going to go back to last night, and you were at the game. I mean, what are your initial thoughts on last night and the pre-season as a whole? Should we be worried that we've only scored 1 goal in 7 games? Is it something that really, really matters? I know it's about fitness. We know that it's about shaking the rust off. But ultimately, football is about scoring goals. And when you've only got 1 of them in 7 games, it doesn't really bode too well for the start of the new season, does it?
No, it doesn't clearly. I mean, everyone would be a lot happier if we'd have scored 2 or 3 in a couple of those games, and particularly last night where you're up against the Saudis team that, albeit finished 4th in their league, you would imagine their league is more akin to the Championship or even Scottish Premiership, something like that. I heard someone talk about that league in that way. I mean, we look fairly sharp going forward, but it's still a pre-season game, and so you could tell certain things weren't quite happening. There was still a lot of misplaced passes. What I really noticed was, certainly in the first half, a lot of stuff was going through Anderson in the absence last night of Gibbs White, who panicked everyone by not being in the squad, but I think it was a personal matter, and hopefully he'll be back next Sunday. But what you always notice about Anderson, and what I noticed a lot last night sitting in the main stand on the halfway line, so you get quite a good view of it all, was that he plays the ball and then he wants it back, and like he gets a bit frustrated, I think, when people don't see the runs that he makes. So he was making some really good runs, and for whatever reason, he wasn't getting the ball back. And I think, when you've got people who are talented on the ball like him, like Gibbs White, we've got to make sure we're involving them in our attacks most of the time. And I was slightly frustrated last night with Callum, because Callum got a lot of the ball, a lot of stuff was going down Callum's side of the pitch, but he was hesitating a lot before putting a cross in, and then quite often getting tackled or losing possession before a cross came in. And if you don't get the ball in the box, you're not going to score a goal. And, I'm sure Nuno will be working on it for next Sunday. I think Brentford have had a poor pre-season in terms of personnel. I honestly do believe that if we sneak a 1-0 next Sunday, a lot of all this will be forgotten, particularly if we get a couple of decent signings over the line this week. But yeah, it wasn't great as a spectacle, and certainly the game was dead by 60, 70 minutes when all the subs came on.
Yeah, and I was making this point to you guys before we came on. I spoke about how scoring 1 goal in 6 games, which is now 7 games, following last night, and when I was on the last pod in the week, 1 goal in that amount of games is just not a great stat. Football is about scoring goals, pre-season friendlies or not. But when you look at the opposition, we played Chesterfield, we played Birmingham. I know that Birmingham were kind of a week away from the start of their season, but I don't really think that should come into it. I mean, our Qadsiah, again, not a great side. You'd expect there to be goals. So what do we put it down to? Do we put it down to the shift in style of play, Richard? Is it that Nuno is now looking to employ Igor Jesus playing a lot closer to Chris Wood? Because when I was growing up, and a lot of other people perhaps watching and listening, it was literally you got 4-4-2. There wasn't much deviation away from 4-4-2. And so the player that played, is your main number 9 striker. The second striker was what I would call an old 10. It's not like the new 10 that Morgan Gibbs White plays now, which is like your central attacking midfielder in the 10, dropping deep, linking the play up, your playmaker. That's what a 10 does these days. In the old days, 10, Teddy Sheringham being the prime example, he was your second striker that basically picked up, headed, drop down balls from your big striker. They linked up in close proximity. Cole and York, again, were perfect in that interchange together. 2 out-and-out strikers. And it looks like with Jesus playing with Wood, that maybe Nuno's trying to employ that. And I kind of feel that maybe it's not quite working yet. Steve talks about Callum not getting those crosses in early enough. I couldn't tell from where I was watching it on this laptop if anybody was in the box for him to cross to, though. Was he holding those crosses, those crosses back because there was no one there? I mean, again, that's kind of an open question I don't know the answer to. So what do we put it down to, Richard? Is it this evolving style of play that we're trying to employ now that means that, the goals just aren't coming?
I mean, I definitely think it factors. I mean, you as you stated, and without having gone back and watching Botafogo play, more than just what we saw in the Club World Cup. I mean, I think in that sense, he was more of a traditional striker, right? Jesus was, and so maybe this is a bit of a different role for him, right? Because he certainly has enough capability on the ball to, I think, manage that role, not in the same way as you pointed out with Morgan. And then when you don't have Morgan in there, right, who tends to be the engine, and you're trying to pivot, not that Anderson can't do it because he's fantastic, but I definitely think there's some modification of how we're playing, and you're working that out. And, and there's got to be something that Nuno's seeing, I think, in training, because one of the values of having the defensive line that we have, that back four, along with Sells, is that it really makes it difficult for teams to score, clearly. And that's good for our attack, because it helps sets us up for what a Premier League defensive unit looks like. And so I think that's good for these guys to work these things out. But when you get live ammunition going and you're having to deal with, even if they're not to the quality that they're going to be seeing week in and week out, it still takes time to understand spacing. It still takes time to understand timing amongst yourselves. And so I think there's a number of factors in there, including you got Dan and Doy, who for the first half, in my mind, looked a little bit lost compared to what he looked like in the previous 2 matches, where he looked like he'd hit the ground running, but then he kind of picked it up in the second half. So it's a build process. I mean, thankfully, as you said, we've got Brentford, right? And they're not a gimme by any means. I won't use the word that has been banned by Premier Elliott, but I will use the word that they're definitely not a side that we can't compete with, if not be better than. They've always been a bit of a thorn in our side too. So I think but it's a good opportunity, I think, to see what that might look like. To Steve's point, that does look like it's probably the starting 11 sans Morgan Gibbs White. But I think it is a bit of this manipulation of formations and personnel sort of groupings and things of that nature. And you still don't have the depth that you need, as we've all said, and they'll get it done. There's no way that Marinakis and Nuno don't have a plan, and don't have even alternatives, second, third choices, guys that we wouldn't qualify as just being, they're just going to throw a body in there because they need to get somebody in the door. I think it's more than that. I genuinely believe in what they're trying to do, even if it's not obvious to the rest of us. But I see Jesus fitting in pretty well. And I think, you know, it's just a matter of getting the finishing going, right? That's always been the question for him. And he just wasn't featured as much in Botafogo. It was spread it amongst the multiple players versus having a featured guy like you did with Wood. And we can see how difficult that can be when you're so codependent on his conversion and him scoring so much. So I think by having a partner in crime with him like that, who has a bit of a different skill set, who doesn't force him to have to drop as much, who can come back and get the ball and can get the flow of play going, sort of not exactly in the same sphere, obviously from a finishing standpoint, just his ability to play that way, a little bit like Kane in that sense, right? To get the ball and get something moving. But yeah, I'm confident it'll all come together.
Okay. Want to say thank you very much to that Garibaldi nerd for the £5 donation that goes into the pot. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
He says the thing to remember in a lot of these friendlies that kids have played, we've only seen 120 minutes of strong 11s. And that's quite true, isn't it, Bruce? And a point I want to make is, no, we haven't scored the goals that we want, but every game on 60 minutes. And in fact, in those early games at half time, so many changes were taking place. And so therefore it just becomes a bit of a mess. You're not quite sure who's playing where. All of the fluidity, all of the cohesion just gets lost. Had the same 11, your starting 11, stayed on the pitch and really, really wanted to score a goal, like let's say in a Premier League game, for example, when it really matters, then you see another level of intensity and you see another level of drive and grit and determination, don't you? So when I think of it like that, my worry kind of just dissipates. So how are you feeling about it? And also, who stood out for you last night? Did you think Nico Williams, for example, shone?
Yeah, no, I thought Nico looked in prime form last night. He looked like he's ready for the season to start already. He was definitely the standout. Anderson looked good. A comment was made during the game that his off the ball movement was phenomenal. He looks primed and ready as well. Obviously, there's some concerns, not just the lack of goal scoring, but who. You're talking about your starting 11 and the cohesiveness of that, but what is going to roll out at versus Brentford? What is that going to look like? He's tinkered with it so much during the preseason. I guess that's my biggest concern moving into the season. I'm kind of hoping we keep what we did last year, and just plug the best 11 out there with Morgan in the middle and striker and our wingers, Nadoy and Odoy on the wings, but. I guess that's really my biggest concern there.
Sticking with you, Bruce. Sorry, Steve. Just quick before you bring it in. Just sticking with you, Bruce, quickly. Sangare and Anderson in the midfield. I mean, Sangare was on the bench last night, and one or two are saying that maybe last night's 11 was the same 11 that would start, except for Yates for Gibbs White. But do you see Sangare coming in for Yates?
Yeah.
Maybe Gibbs White
absolutely.
coming in for Jesus. How do you see that?
Say that last part again.
I was just saying, how do you see it? Do you see maybe Jesus dropping to the bench, or does it look like, sit his stall out for those two starting with Wood?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't see Jesus starting versus Brentford. But in the midfield, absolutely. I think that's been ironed out. I think that's Morgan, Gibbs White, Anderson, and Sangare starting week 1. I'm sure it's not as clear as that, but to me, it's pretty evident. Sangare looks like a completely different player, and I'm not just talking about his playing style, by the way, or how he looks. He just looks leaner. He looks more athletic out there. I almost didn't recognize him when I saw the game last night. He looks fit, but no. Back to Jesus. I don't think he's near what Chris Woods is. I'm starting Chris Wood. Sorry, not Chris Woods. Chris Wood, week 1, and Jesus is on the bench for me.
Yeah, I mean, 20 goals, Steve. Chris Wood, it's hard to drop him. You were going to come in and say something then. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, two things. I'm wondering whether he might play 2 in midfield, not 3 at home, particularly against teams that we should be beating. And it would be a bit of a statement, wouldn't it, to kind of go into that as a sort of 4-2-3-1 against Brentford. And you bring Sangare in maybe or whoever might come in as a replacement for him in an away game or against the top 6 side. And that might give us a bit more attacking intent. But what I was going to say earlier was the issue of Aina last night. So it was Aina had missed the last 2 games. I think that's the first time he's played even in a friendly with Ndoye. So, you know, he had such a good relationship with Elanga. Ndoye is a different character. He's not as quick, but he clearly is, you know, he's tricky on the ball and he can get crosses in and he can shoot. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time for Aina and Ndoye to kind of work out, you know, who drops, who goes past him. But I think that will be an interesting combination down the right as well as Williams and Callum on the left. So, you know, I'm still quite, like Richard, I'm still quite confident really going in to Brentford. You know, Brentford have lost a lot of players, and I want us to go in next Sunday with some intent to win the game from the off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I say, I just want to quickly welcome all the additional people that have just joined us. And it seems like we've had the influx over from Forest Fan TV. I'm a bit perturbed though, Wolfie, because I've been getting a lot of beard love for you lately. But now it seems that he's asking the question, is Brucey's beard possibly even better than mine? I mean, you know, I don't know. Mine got cropped a bit too much by my barber on my most recent visit. So I'm on a bit of a grow back at the moment, but Brucey's beard is rather spectacular. I have to say. So if you are joining us from FFTV, thank you very much for being with us. Please do hit like and subscribe. Come back and join us. We do things a bit differently here, but at the same time, we are talking about Nottingham Forest, the team that we love. Richard Sprayer, cut you off. Go ahead, my friend.
No, I just wanted to give a little bit more, thought on Nico thing in relation to how we set up from an attacking standpoint. I think what you see from him now, and I think someone made a comment in this too, it's going to mean an awful lot to the club. This is probably an obvious statement. If there's any way that he gets into, I think his defending is great. And there was a moment in that match towards, I think, middle first 20 minutes of the match where he absolutely dropped. He came back because we all know how difficult it is. I know. I wish I could have as beautiful a beard as those other two gentlemen, but ultimately it was great to see how well he can shift from that offensive sort of attacking sort of role back to the defensive role without losing any ground. And he nicked it off of, I don't know what the player was, who the player was, but it just shows that he's becoming such a well-rounded player, to the point about Anderson in terms of how much he can do from a midfield role, because he can move between different sort of traditional 6, 8, 10 sort of ways of approaching things. But the overlapping and the inverting and the way that he's doing that with Callum, when they start to continue to do that, I think, to me, there's a lot of excitement that can come from that, because Nico Williams is very good on the ball. I mean, I was watching him last night very specifically because Aina's always had sort of that moniker of being, the guy who's really good on the ball from a fullback position. But Nico's so adept. And I'm just super excited about what we can gain from that in terms of assists, what that does in terms of how you deal with stressing that side of the pitch. We do need to get more balance. It has been completely dominated on that left, but I think what you saw from Nico last night to me shows the maturity of a guy who understands how good he's becoming. And I'm going to say, we'll talk about it on Tuesday, but he'd be one of my early picks, honestly, for player of the season next season. So I just think he's going to do a lot.
That nonsense.
I know.
Tuesday to come. But listen, 51% of Chris Wood's goals came from assists from Anthony Elanga. So someone else has got to step up to the plate. Exactly. So Nico Williams has got to be that guy. If you are with us for the first time, and Peter, you may be, you're calling out some happy clapping nonsense. Hey, listen, we offer a balanced opinion. We try to be positive, but at the same time, we will tell it as it is. 1 goal in 7 games is shit. It isn't good enough, all right? We accept that. But we're trying to kind of pick apart why it's happened and what it means. And actually, is it that bad or a bigger deal? Had the same 11 been on the pitch on the 89th minute, desperate for a goal, I kind of feel like we would have scored more goals, as I was saying about 5 minutes ago. So you never know. Look, listen, we are going into Premier League season where the last 7 games, we scored 1 goal. The balance of how things work, we've got to be scoring a goal at some point soon, right? It has got 0-0 written all over it because it's Brentford and they're just that team. I don't know what's going on with Young Wissa at the moment. I really, really don't. But they're going through transition. I've got them marked as relegation fodder, and we'll have more of that later on Tuesday. Excuse my phone going off there. But for the moment, guys, we are going to move on and come away from the friendlies. We'll take a short break. So we like a bit of cheese here on Talking Red. So get your laughing gear around some of this.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
The Cheese Trader. He is a legend. He's in York. We mentioned him before. Please do place your order for some fantastic cheesy goodness. All right, let's move on. Big day tomorrow happening. Crystal Palace will find out, and Nottingham Forest will find out as well, what competition we're going to be in. There was the hearing on Friday. Steve Parish came out of that hearing and was interviewed by Sky Sports. And, you know, he seemed like he'd lost all of his, you know,
Obviously, we're devastated. Obviously, we're devastated. Obviously, we're devastated.
I think he's pretty devastated. Hopefully, he'll be even more devastated tomorrow. I'll come to you, Steve. What do you think is going to happen? Are we going to stay in the Europa? And how much has this affected further recruitment? So far, we've brought in Ndoye, Jer Cunha, and Igor Jesus, Angus Gunn as well, goalkeeper we know about. But how much has it stifled our recruitment?
I think it's definitely stifled it. I think it's probably affected Palace as well. You're going to get an announcement tomorrow, and whoever's in the Conference League has then got 10 days before they play that Conference League first playoff. And, you know, that's not good preparation for either side. I am quite pessimistic on it, but I've made myself pessimistic so that if we end up in the Europa League, I'll be ecstatic tomorrow. But I'd kind of got used to the Conference League when I thought it was going to be a thing. I thought we'd definitely get to semi-final, final of it, and probably even win it. Europa League will be harder, but it will be a lot sexier, won't it? Because we will be playing bigger clubs. There'll be bigger away contingents. We'll be going to bigger stadiums. There's a lot more prestige to it. But the uncertainty, I think, has meant that a lot of players who we're trying to bring in are waiting to see which European competition we're in. We might even be waiting to sign them, depending on whether we get extra money for being in Europa League. So I think there probably is a plan A and a plan B for transfers. And I think there'll be a sort of domino effect from tomorrow's announcement. So I hope it's early in the day and not late in the day. I hope we get on with it. You know, I'll be ecstatic if we're in it, but I'm not going to cry too much if we're not, because we didn't qualify for it in the way that Palace did by winning the cup. So I'm a bit torn. But yeah, it's definitely affected the transfer situation, and whoever's in the conference has literally got 10, 11 days to prepare for that playoff one. And that could be us, and we could be going to Norway in a couple, 3 weeks' time, because the first leg's at home.
Yeah. Andrew Sharky Sharp with the £5 donation. Thank you very much to you, sir. Really appreciate it. Into the pot it goes. He says, although we tried so hard, Yates frustrated me yesterday with all the needless fouls. By the way, this is a beard. And Andrew, to be fair, that is a beard, sir. That is a beard. We salute you and your beardiness. Congratulations to you on that beauty. Yates has always been a player that divides opinion, and we're not going to get into the Ryan Yates debate here and now. We haven't got time for it. We could be here forever and a day. Sticking with CAS, Bruce. I mean, Paul Morley was talking about the list A and list B in our WhatsApp group, and on another podcast he was mentioning it as well. How much do you kind of subscribe to that? Steve mentioned it just now. There's possibly a list A in terms of targets if we're in the Europa, and a B list if we're in the conference. Do you think that's a real thing at all?
No, just because who our owner is and his ambitions. No, I don't. I think it's just a matter of how much money he can or cannot spend. That's the only thing holding him back, and maybe that doesn't even hold him back as much.
I suppose that does bear relevance when it comes to the competition, now, doesn't it? Because I mean, I know that it's maybe 25 to 30 million extra in the Europa, but we are still kind of, binded by PSR rules a little bit. So we've got a little bit more freedom with the spending. Perhaps does that mean that we can get a certain player, or would a certain player be more attracted to us?
Yeah.
Only want to come to us if it's Europa.
I think, yeah, your second point is probably correct there. It's more so on the other player that we're recruiting and if they'll come or not, given what competition we are in. So that's probably more than likely. I don't think we have a list A and B. I don't really subscribe to that. To me, again, it just boils down to who we can get, how much we can spend, and who's willing to come to us. So.
Yeah. I mean, the comments are coming in quite fast. I'm trying to pull up a comment, and it just disappears because you're all commenting, which is great. Please do keep dropping your comments in. I'll try and get some on the screen as much as possible. Really appreciate everybody for things they're going to say to us. Someone was just saying, let's just go to list C and get some players in, Richard. I mean, it's not as straightforward as that, though, is it? I mean, we've been linked with a whole host of different people. This is probably a good time to kind of bring some of those names in. I mean, Leif Davis, for example. It was alleged that by Ben Jacobs and the TalkSport lot that we were preparing a bid for. There's that word again. Nottingham Forest are preparing a bid for. It's like, how fucking long does it take to prepare a bid? Get the fucking phone up and say, do you want to sell us Leif Davis? I've got 25 million quid for you. Yes or no? Simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, for some reason in my head, I went to Moneyball, where Brad Pitt's like bouncing between like two or three different teams, trying to play them all against each other. So, but no, I definitely think you're right. I think there's, to Steve's point, maybe it's not as literal as a list, but it probably is certain like qualities and certain attributes and certain level, certain experience that they have, that you're weighing and balance a number of factors. Leif Davis being a kind of guy that you could say, okay, yeah, I like he advances up the pitch pretty well. He's good on set pieces. His tackle percentage is not too terrible, but his overall defensive actions looks pretty poor. So the tendency is to kind of like, it's not even just about, yes, it is somewhat about what team he played for, but those kinds of players add value, add depth. They can fill in as needed, but is that ultimately going to be the thing that helps strengthen your squad enough to really genuinely compete for a Europa title, for example? You've got to take into account too the kind of development track you think you can put some of these guys on if they are younger. Musa is a perfect example of that. He's kind of dipped in terms of his potential and form. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. It's just like you just.
I don't know what you got here. I'm trying to find the right slides here at the moment. I don't even know if there's a Musa one. Is there a Musa one? Doesn't say.
No, I didn't put Musa in there. Just
no.
Quite a bit, but yeah, it's the point is that I'm sure there's a number of things being discussed, right? It's simply about what you think prepares you, not only in terms of what you're going to be doing this season and how you want to manage the squad depth and how you want to manage the minutes and how you want to not put your starting 11 in jeopardy like you did last season, where, I know Nuno likes a tight squad, but I think he saw, we didn't have, we had some players that probably needed a bit of a break here and there. Some of them got them just strictly because of injury, like Ina and Wood. But that, which is not your preference, obviously. But at the same time, it seemed like there was a bit of a dip combination of, I don't know if it's found out concept, but it's about could they work at the same rate that they were doing at certain intervals? And maybe that's not the case, because they may have been a little bit tired, a little, fatigued, both mentally and physically, because it does take a toll when you've not been in that position before. And now you're trying to get into Champions League, which nobody expected to happen, and the pressure that generates and how that becomes challenging for you mentally. And so I think this go around, they clearly have to do that. And they can't just throw bodies in a space and say, well, that guy somewhat has attributes that we kind of like, but doesn't really fit the bill in totality. I mean, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to have enough at their disposal. This Magasa guy, for example, who seems to be a sort of a defensive midfielder / center back, which I don't know why in the world we would even want to touch another center back, considering, unless we have some sort of weird notion that Jair Cunha is now going to be the backup right back, given how much he's played on the right. But I hope not too. But the point being is there's probably very specific reasons clearly as to why they're focusing on some of these players. And so I trust them to get things across the line. I don't think they're going to put us in jeopardy in terms of not being able to field a quality and competitive squad. So got to believe in the plan, as I said earlier, even if we don't know what that plan directly is.
So Fabrizio Romano tweets in the last hour that Forest have sent 13 million euro fixed fee plus add-ons as an official bid for Monaco's Sungutu Magassa. He is a defensive-minded midfielder / centre-back. So, again, a player that I know nothing about. One player that I'm going to stick with you, Richard, on is Kostas Tsimikas. It's been reported, again, that Forest are interested in the left-back, and there has been contact with Liverpool for a permanent transfer. His name popped up really early on in the summer. I'm not quite sure if there's any legs in this one or not. And I'll quickly add as well, I kind of feel like there are players on the list that would come, whether it's Europa or Conference. I think Adama Traore is one of those players who's been mentioned. I think that if he's coming, it doesn't matter whether it's Conference or Europa. I think he's coming anyway. I guess we'll never know, because ultimately we're going to find out tomorrow which competition we're in, and then we're going to find out if he's going to come or not. So again, it's so much speculation on who comes and when they come and why they come, etc., etc. But Tsimikas is a good player. Obviously, played a lot of games for Liverpool. But our friend WT Analysis, everyone go and follow WT Analysis, guys, because they put out some really great stats on X. Really, really interesting, really, really accurate. We normally have the Statman Danscape with us for stats, but Richard is going to just take us through the wheel that we have on screen for Tsimikas.
Yeah, so I mean, what sticks out to you right away, right, is the red section of this this chart, this radar chart, and that's focused in on what he does in the probably final third of the pitch, and how he impacts that side of what we do from an overall plan standpoint. And he's very similar in the way that I would say we kind of envisioned Alex Moreno fitting in with us last season. And effectively what that means is he's really good with assists. He's really good on set pieces. He's really good at, even on his XG is reasonable for a guy in his position, but he's more of an offensively oriented fullback. Well, I get what you're saying, Paul, but ultimately impact is impact. And if that comes through his assist, through the mechanism of an assist, I don't think you can diminish that. To Greg's point, some of that's gone with Elanga. Right. And until we start seeing maybe Morgan even ratchet it up, as I've said before, even though I love the guy to death, when we start seeing him hit double digits, he should be hitting double digits in his assists coming from that 10 role. So you have supplemental benefits of guys like this, Tsimikas, similar to Moreno. His defensive actions are not good. He's in the lower percentiles in terms of where he trends, related to tackles, interceptions, clearances, etc. So in terms of how he impacts the game from that side of it, it's not quite as good. He's got enough pace. He's got enough, certainly had good coaching at his time in Liverpool. It makes perfect sense why he might be consideration, because he came from Olympiacos prior to that. So that connection point, being a Greek player with our owner, makes a lot of sense. His price point, at least if you're going to believe Transfer Market, falls into around 18 to 20 million pounds. But as we've seen, everything's inflated this season. That's part of the challenge. You want to get quality depth, well, you're going to have to pay quality depth prices. And so a lot of players, even a Hutchinson, for example, who we don't envision starting over Dan Ndoye or starting over Morgan Gibbs-White in the 10, he ultimately is going to cost us more than 35 million pounds potentially, or 35 million plus add-ons, depending on how they work it, if they want to continue to take a shot at that with Ipswich, because they don't seem inclined at a given moment. But this gentleman in and of himself, he's high on the threat creation scale, which, that's a different metric than we're used to seeing from Dan, like Dan puts out there, right, Greg? So WT Analysis does great work, but I think that's something that you can value. He's 29 years old. That's right. He has a little bit of that in there as well. So we definitely value that metric. That's probably the one we enjoy the most, simply because of the amount of sound bites we can get out of it. But I would say as a player, I think he's a good shout. I think he fits what we want in terms of a guy who would challenge enough from a minute standpoint. But as we saw from Nico yesterday, he is not going anywhere. He's starting unless injured. He's going to be cemented in to that left back role, right? And maybe some switched around AFCON.
Yeah. I'm going to have to cut in. I love Nico. I love Aina. I've said this before. But I don't want it to be that they are just walking into the team because we love them so much and they've just signed new contracts. That means sod all to me. I mean, I think these guys...
It's not about that. That's not where I'm coming from at all.
No. I know that. They will keep their place because they are really, really good. But I want them to be pushed so they don't think I can just walk into the team. I want the guy behind them, because look at the moment, Matt Sells, he's had an exceptional season, but he wasn't being pushed by Carlos Miguel. We'll talk about him in a moment. And there are other possible positions where the guys on the bench, the guys that aren't getting a start, just aren't pushing the starters enough. And I want not just Nico and Ola, but every single position, I want them to feel people breathing down their neck, fighting for the shirt.
But that costs money.
I think Tsimikas, well, you say it costs money. It does cost money to a certain degree. But then, so what? Are we saying that we're going to have a set starting 11, or maybe one or two others that are on rotation and the rest are just cover? I mean, I think Tsimikas, for me personally, what I'm trying to get to is I think is a really good option. I think he comes in and he will fight Nico to start, and it might be that Nico will then be given time off to rest, knowing full well that the guy coming in is really good. Whereas actually, if the guy who we want to bring in isn't really very good, Nuno might say, well, I can't afford to drop Nico because the other guy behind him isn't very good. Whereas actually, if the guy behind him is really, really good, then it gives Nico a break. I'm using Nico as the example. Same for everyone else.
Yeah.
What, Steve?
But that's to me, that's the thing about the Europa League as opposed to the Conference League. We play in the Europa League, we're going to need people like that, because if you're going to rotate, you're going to have to rotate quality with quality. If we're in the Conference League, certainly in the group stages, you could play Zach Abbott at right back and Kunya at left back or whatever against part-timers from Azerbaijan or, Ireland or whatever. I mean, you look at some of the teams in the group stage of the Conference League, we should be beating those teams, with half of our starting line.
Steady on, Steve, because when we fucking have to go to Oslo or to Norway next week, you said it now, we're going to end up... you said it.
Yeah, you've got to get through the playoff in August. But, I think if you get in the Europa League, you are going to have those quality backups, because you will be playing Thursday, Sunday for at least 8 games of that period. And, you're going to need to rotate people around, particularly in those positions. And that's why we're going to need a lot of backup. I mean, the starting 11 picks itself at the moment, and maybe the first 2 subs, but after that, we are very, very weak. What's it came on last night? Omar Richards came on for 15 minutes and played left back and got a very good crossing towards the end of the game. That's about all he did. But I mean, presumably he's going to be on his bike again at some point. But it makes you laugh, doesn't it, what happens in this club? Because we paid £4 million or something for him at the time, 3 years ago.
I think we paid £15 million for him.
15, Jesus Christ!
I think we paid £15 million for a player who just won the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich, by the way, and actually played a decent set of games. And he was coming in to be the starting left back. So his career and that hairline fracture that didn't get picked up on a medical has just been the death of him, because he's never recovered from that in terms of reputation and everything else. So I think he's a good player. But again, he's just not fancy. He's going to be out the door. Time's against us, guys. I've got to move us on a little bit. Brucey, out the door. It looks like Carlos Miguel is on his way. Palmeiras are close to finalising a deal for the goalkeeper. It hasn't been signed yet, but it's been reported that it's almost done. So that's one possibly out the door. The other one is Jota Silva. We know that Sporting continue in negotiations. They want a loan. Mr. Marinakis is adamant it's got to be a sale. I've spoken about Jota Silva. I really like him. I think there's a place for him in the squad, especially with Europa, but it doesn't look like he's going. What do you think about Miguel and Jota on the way out? Are you happy with both those two leaving?
Miguel couldn't leave quick enough, in my opinion. I've seen enough of him. He's not fit for the Premier League. Jota Silva, and you and I are on the same page on that one, Greg. I see a spot for him. I think he can play a role even off the bench. And hell, if we can't score a goal in open play, he can definitely draw a foul in the box. So it's a penalty. So Silva, there's value there. I really don't want to see him go. But if the money's good enough, at the end of the day, this is a business.
Look, it is a business. We've got to try and recoup some money. Gary Robinson in the comments is correcting me. He's saying 8.5 million for the Richards fee. So, it wasn't quite a 15, but it was still more than the 4 that Steve was thinking. So look, it's still money that we spent on players. And there was a lot of that in the first season, wasn't there? Because we bought so many players coming in. And maybe the reason why there's been restraint, Richard Spray, is that the club don't want to get caught by, the PSR trap or whatever kind of financial trap it is. Because the window is still open for a while. There's no need to kind of pull the trigger until we know for certain what competition we're in. So it is sensible. And, as much as us fans are crying out, going, oh, get these chuffing players through the door and what's going on? It's just sign anyone for the love of God. We have signed players and we know that there's players going out and there's going to be players coming in. And in fact, the exits of Toffolo, I know that he was free because of his contract being up, but his wages are being freed up. And Lewis O'Brien and Omar Bamadeli and now Miguel and Jota Silva and anyone else that I've not mentioned. There's been a decent amount of money that's kind of getting built up. Anthony Alanga, of course. So are you expecting there to be a lot of action next week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm sure the potential, there's going to be even more clickbait folded in there with all the rest of it, that's actually probably got some merit. But I definitely agree with that. And I think you're not wrong. I mean, while we seen, someone once told me it's always easier to spend someone else's money and someone else's time. And I think it's easy for us as fans to sit back and generally, start to project what we think should happen, as that armchair sort of, recruiting team. And I tend to believe that we're going to see quite a good number of players come in. I think we'll be fine by the window. I just think we have to be very cautious. Maybe it's just the financial person in me and listening to Raf as often as we have, with his kind of expertise in this arena. But I would say that, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're having to do a fire sale at some point in, before I know it's a year away. I get all that, but they're going to weigh and balance these kinds of things. They're going to factor this in because they recognize, to Steve's point, until we have some projected funds, even if we don't go far in the competition, just knowing what we likely could end up with, it makes a difference in terms of how aggressive you get. And that makes a difference in terms of not only the transfer fee side of it, but the wage side of it as well, right? And understanding, if everyone can say, we want Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz doesn't want to make £50,000 a week. Douglas Luiz wants to make double that, if not more than that. So, and anticipates he should make that, right? I mean, that's how he views it, and that's how his agent views it, because he has a vested interest financially as well. So I just think we have to be cautious about getting too up in arms about what we think we don't see. And I get, like Wolfie said in the comments, we can't even beat Chesterfield. Well, you know what? Look at Newcastle's situation in terms of how they've played in the preseason. It's not something to brag about. So I would say that we just need to be very careful about how much we sort of slam the club's lack of quote unquote effort, both on the pitch and off. Because I think there's a lot more going on than we have any clue about.
It's like, we've said that, haven't we? We've said that there's going to be so much happening. And
you said it. Yeah, there's going to be people you didn't even think about showing up and, in our kit.
And don't forget these preseason friendlies as well. We might not have scored many goals, but we haven't let many in either. We had 2 defeats, and the 3-1 to Fulham was the one that I suppose you might kind of pull out and say, well, look, there's another Premier League team, and we lost to them. But we weren't, were we troubled enough? I mean, Matt Sells had a couple of really good performances, so it's good to see him looking sharp. We're not happy clappers, right? But we are trying to be positive, because if we sit here and we slate the club from a position of not knowing really the full story of what's going on, we only know what is out there on social media. I mean, we have a few sources here and there with other things that perhaps aren't that common. Wolfie has just messaged me to say that Palmeiras have finalised the signing of Carlos Miguel. So he's saying that it's now been, it's 99% done, €4 million for the goalkeeper. So, yeah, that looks pretty done and dusted. Richard Spray's in Oklahoma, as ever. We've got Brucey over in Texas. I'm here in Poland on my European trip. Steve's back in Blighty in Nottingham, or just outside Nottingham. So we're trying to fly the flag of Chris Almer and Matt from Forest All Over. And I want to put a shout out to London Voice, who says he's watching on a flight back to Seattle. I mean, This guy's in the air watching. I don't know how he's doing it. If you're paying for internet and you're watching Talking Reds flying over the Atlantic, that's a new one on me. So I'm chuffed to bits with that one, London Voice. You're an absolute legend. Thank you very much for that one, sir. Okay, look, we're nearly out of time, and so I want to change tact entirely. The Premier League season is upon us, and we have been talking about the importance of scoring goals. So it's time for another of Greg's fantastic tenables. All right, so we're going to do a tenable. Here it comes. So this is not so much a Forest tenable. This is a Premier League tenable, okay? I want you guys to give me the players with the most Premier League goals since the 2015-16 season. So we're basically talking within the last 10 years. And on the screen, I've given you a clue. Where it says no, that means that they no longer play in the Premier League. Where it says yes, it means that they are still currently in the Premier League. And obviously retired speaks for itself. All right. So I've tried to help you along with that. And so I will I'm on my laptop, so it's going to be a little bit of a tricky one for me to try and navigate everything. So bear with me. Richard, I'm with you first. Can you give me a player in the last 10 years or so who you think features in this list of having scored the most Premier League goals?
Salah. I think I'm going to go Mo Salah.
So Mo Salah, is he on the list? Let's see if he is tenable or not. It's rising, folks. Yes, Mo Salah is indeed tenable. He is number 2 on that list. So well done to you, Richard Spray. Let's move on. Brucey, I'm coming to you next. Can you give me a name that might feature on the list?
Harry Kane.
So Harry Kane.
Sir Harry Kane.
No longer in the Premier League. He's now in the Bundesliga, of course, smashing the goals in. Is he on there? Of course he is. He's the top dog on the tenable chart. Okay, so maybe 2 of the more obvious names have been mentioned. Steve Battlemuch, I'm coming to you, sir, for your name, please, sir.
I have both of them on our list of 3. Now, I'm going to go Haaland, but I don't know whether... I know he's only been around for about 4 years, but he scored an absolute hatload, so I'm going to say Haaland.
Erling Haaland. Is Erling Haaland on the tenable tower? It's rising, it's going. Oh, Steve. You were right to wonder. Has he scored enough goals in that 3 years he's been in the Premier League? The answer is no. He's not on the tenable chart. So, Richard, we come back to you. Are you able to give us another name, please, sir?
Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy. Now, there's a name. An interesting name. Recently of Leicester, departed the club, no longer in the Premier League. Is he there? Jamie Vardy is there. So, we have got the top 3 so far. Harry Kane, Mohamed Salah, and Jamie Vardy. Brucey, bonus, I'm back with you.
Aguero?
Sergio Aguero. Yes, indeed. Could it be Aguero? He is the one that's retired. So that clue maybe helps you out. Maybe it didn't, but Sergio Aguero is on the list. You're doing rather well, guys. But Steve, you're still to get off the board yet, and it is your turn.
Oh, no. And I just had Aguero as well on my list. I don't think he scored enough goals.
Well,
Ollie Watkins has been around for a few years in the Premiership. I'll try him.
Okay. Ollie Watkins. He has scored a few goals for Brentford. I think that was outside the Premier League, though, but in the Premier League with Aston Villa. No, Steve's having a mare.
I'm having a mare.
I thought Steve might be the one that would be kind of pulling out the names here, but the 2 Americans are showing you how it's done at the moment, Stephen. Right. Richard Spray, back to you.
Luis Suarez.
Oh, Luis Suarez. Oh, I wonder, is he in there? Did he leave the Premier League just a little bit earlier than you thought? Luis Suarez.
Yeah.
No, I have to say, guys, there's some names that I thought you guys would have mentioned by now. I have to say, but there we go. Bruce, over to you.
Son?
Heung-min Son, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it?
Keeping on. Let's have a go on Heung-min Son. He is now departed Tottenham Hotspur, and he's playing for LAFC.
He's in America now.
MLS. He's in America.
Hey!
Bruce is having it off tonight. Well done, Heung-min Son. So we've got the top half sorted. Just 5 to go. Steve Battlemuch. Think about this. Come on. Don't. You guys are going to be kicking yourselves. You really are going to be kicking yourselves. You really will be. I'm trying to help you here.
I know, but it's like some of them moved abroad quite quickly, didn't they? So they've only played a few.
On the tenable chart, 3 of these players are still in the Premier League, and 2 of them are not playing in the Premier League. So try and think about the ones that. I mean, there's one name on this list that I'm just staggered you haven't mentioned yet.
Chris Wood.
Let's have a go to see if Chris Wood is on the tenable tower. Oh, there he is. Would you believe it? I think I kind of helped you a little bit there with that one, just to try and get you off the board a little bit there. Okay, off the mark. Right, yeah. Okay, well done. Chris Wood is there. Richard Spray.
Man.
It's getting down to
brain's going blank. You said there was how many?
On my phone, I get tenables every day, and I did this earlier on with Orlando, and we did it. We cracked it without losing any lives as well. So yeah, it can be done. You think about it, it can be done.
Goodness gracious, why can't I? Like Steve, it's just your brain just gone blank. They're still in the Premier League, you said? Yeah, there's 2 more, right? They're still in the Premier.
2 more in the Premier, and there's 2 that have left. I mean, one is only just left the Premier League to a destination that, some maybe think he did or didn't deserve.
Good grief. I'm going to throw one random one out there. Bruno Fernandes. I have no idea. My brain's just not deriving something that's probably.
Bruno Fernandes is a really good shout because he scores goals, but he's not tenable. No, he's not. He's not tenable. Bruce, you're doing so well here. You're in the lead. Can you hit us with one of the 4 missing?
I'm glad he said Bruno because that was my next guest.
I'll start giving you guys.
Did somebody say Callum Wilson yet? Did somebody say Callum Wilson?
No, they didn't. We can go with Callum Wilson.
Let's go Callum Wilson.
He scored goals for Bournemouth. He scored goals for Newcastle.
Hey.
Oh, well done. That's a good shout.
Yeah, it's very good. So there's 3 left. I'll start being a bit kind of. So
I think I've got one. I think Sterling.
Right.
He scored a lot of goals.
Good shout.
Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea. Is he tenable?
Yes. Sort of thinking further back, you see.
Exactly, because it's from 10 years, the last 10 years or so. Okay, so there's 2 players. Neither are currently in the Premier League. One is no longer in the Premier League because he left permanently. One is on loan at a club.
Rashford.
In Europe. You're saying Marcus Rashford, are you?
Yeah.
Richard Spray. Have I just helped you along there? Have I?
I think you did. Oh man, I thought you helped me out.
I should have helped you out because I probably misspelled it because Marcus Rashford. Oh, why is that not coming up? You know what? I probably misspelled it on the original tenable. You have to spell it. Marcus Rashford is on there. I'll give you that. Right, he is on there. I don't know why it's showing that he's not, but he is above Chris Wood. So I don't know why it's showing as that. That's my error. Oh God, this is going really well, isn't it? There's one more to get, Bruce. Plays in Saudi. Ex-Liverpool.
Sadio Mane.
Oh, Mane. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadio Mane. There we go.
Ah.
There we go. Well done. You guys have done really well. The score's kind of got a bit skewed in the end. All I'll say is Bruce definitely did win that by about 8 points, and Richard and Steve were doing their very best. I didn't get a chance to pay attention to what was going on in the comments because I had to change my screen. But thank you very much for everyone chucking in. I'm sure that probably helps you guys if you're peeking in the comments to see what others were saying or not. But no, just a bit of fun. Scoring goals is really important. As we know, I'm confident that Forest will get back to putting the ball in the back of the net very, very soon. I hope. Okay, we're out of time, guys. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us. Bruce, any final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, so it's the beard oil that really brings it out. So it's really cheap. You can find it on Amazon, and it makes it shine a little bit. So that's all. Hey, no, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a blast as always, and I definitely cheated on the comments. So thanks for the help.
Don't admit to anything. I concur. Getting a good beard oil and a nice beard brush and keeping it well groomed every day is really, really important. And Steve, any final thoughts as we try and encourage you to join the beard crew?
You won't encourage me at all. I would say tonight is like Christmas Eve, isn't it? You've got to go to bed early, write your Santa list, and wake up and be told you're in the Europa League tomorrow, and then see 3 signings, bang, 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 straight after that. So, let's all go to bed and dream of Forest coming good tomorrow.
Well, listen, I do like a nice dream, and if Forest are in it, then I'm all for that. So fingers crossed for a happy outcome tomorrow. My podcast partner, my compadre, my brother from another mother in Oklahoma. Any final thoughts, mate?
Just want to give a little shout to our buddy Andrew Cove. So here's a great picture of Andrew celebrating, showing his love for Forest, as a lot of these fans are doing. But you could see he's doing it with gusto, and he's even got the new shirt on. So well done, mate, for getting that shirt, because I'm jealous because I got to wait until I get out there in October to get that shirt. But he's going through a lot in his own life, and we just appreciate him enormously. And he does a lot for the Nottingham Forest Football Club North America group. And he's a Nottingham lad, and he loves the club with all his heart. And he's doing a lot to help bring folks together in the States, like myself and Bruce. Those who have come from it just because it's a familial thing and it's what you've known your whole life and what you're connected to through family. Or like Bruce, maybe that's not the case, but you still found a way to love the club no matter what and give as much support and commitment to it as anyone else. So appreciate him enormously, and just be thinking about him and what him and his family are going through right now. And I'm sure he appreciates all the connections that he does have, but he's doing an amazing job working with the club and really focusing in on helping us all be a strong community over on the other side of the pond as well. So appreciate you, brother.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. Isaac is asking, what's the website for the Tenable? I'm assuming, Isaac, you mean the daily Tenables that I was talking about that I get. I've got a football quizzes and games kind of app that I will post on the next pod. I haven't got the link now. So if you come back and watch the next pod, which is going to be on Tuesday at 12 p.m. BST. No, 11 a.m. 11 a.m. BST. Yeah, it's going to be 12 for me because I'm an hour ahead. It's going to be 11 a.m. BST on Tuesday. I'll be back with Richard and also Danscape and Raf. And we've asked Steve and Brucey and all the guys in our Talking Reds group to help us with the predictions. We did a prediction show last year where we went through every single fixture on the pod, and it got quite long. It got quite interesting. We kind of changed it a bit this year. Richard had come up with a really good idea. So we've sent out a form for all of our crew to fill out, and we're going to take the average of all of those thoughts and put them into the Talking Reds prediction episode on Tuesday. So if you come back on Tuesday, we will be going live at 11 a.m. BST. And so I'll get that link for the website ready, Isaac, to make sure we post it out, because it is really good. There's loads of really cool football quizzes on there. So it helps you with your trivia knowledge and all that kind of stuff. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Lots of you came over from FFTV. Wolfie, thanks again for diverting your audience to us. If you haven't seen us before, we hope you'll come back and maybe check us out again. We're available on Apple and Spotify and the usual places. We hope that you'll consider liking and subscribing. So please go ahead and push that button wherever you can. It really helps us out just to get our numbers up, just to kind of spread the message a little bit. We've got our own little corner of the podcast world when it comes to Nottingham Forest, and we just want to talk about Forest and we want to talk about our club in the best way we possibly can. Some of it might be a bit happy clapping, but at the same time, we'll get to the nuts and bolts here whenever we can. Next Sunday, Forest kick off. Before then, we'll be back with predictions. We'll be back with a preview show as well. Lots happening in the week. Keep your eyes on X and so on. Crystal Palace at CAS tomorrow, so the news will be breaking left, right, and centre, and we'll do our best to keep you updated as well. Come on, you Reds.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.